Welcome to week 1 of Silhouette Essentials 101. My name is Nicole Nowosad, your instructor for the next 4 weeks. On week 1, we have a lot of interesting things to go through in your Silhouette software. We're going to work with fonts, draw some basic shapes. I'm going to show you how to open up your class cut files for use, resize your designs, and we're going to go through some basic options in the modify and offset windows. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we want to do is download some fonts into our Silhouette machine. And to do that, it's quite easy as to just go onto the internet and go to a free font website. There's several different available, but the one that I like to use is called defont.com. So go to whatever font website you want to use, go into that website, and you're going to want to locate the fonts that you'd like to download. So I'm going to just quickly do a search here and find a font that I like. And I'm going to choose this one here called Qualité Deluxe Platinum. I like the scripty fonts, and this one looks like it could be a fun one. So I'm going to just select download, and it's going to automatically start to download to my computer. Now, depending on how things download on your computer, you will need to be acquainted on where and how that is done on your individual device. If I just click on the drop-down box here beside my download, I can open it in the folder where it was downloaded. And I can open it again, and it's going to show me a preview of what that font looks like. Along the top here, you can see that there's an install button, and I'm just going to click that, and it's going to automatically download to my computer. So now any software I have on my computer that uses fonts, this font will be one of the fonts available in that software. So not just Silhouette, but all different softwares. So at this point, I'm just going to download the one font, and then I'm going to open my Silhouette software. What you do is if you don't open your Silhouette software after you've downloaded the fonts may not be in your Silhouette software. So I do recommend you download your fonts and then open up your Silhouette so that you're able to automatically have them loaded in. Otherwise, you just have to wait till the next time you open up your Silhouette software. Now, if you select the textile icon at the top corner or top right-hand side of your page and type in the name of the font that you just downloaded, in my case, I just typed in Q and it popped up, and I can select that font, and then I just need to select the text option here on the left side of my page and click on my page. Now I'm ready to type in a word using that font. So I'm just going to type in the word happy. And I'm going to zoom in a few times just so you can see this a little bit better. And I'm going to use my zoom tool and click and drag a few times just to get this a little bit larger. Now hopefully you can see here that there's different overlapping periods for these letters. And if I were to cut this design as it is right now, it would cut on all those individual pieces, and you would have portions cut out of each of the letters. And that's not how you want this to look. You want this to be all one joined letter. So if you right-click on that design and click Ungroup, you'll see that now you have 5 different letters with each individual resizing handles, which I'll get to in a minute. One thing you want to do, though, if you have a word that you want to join together, is you need to make sure that you have overlapping areas. So in this case with the font, the letters automatically overlap in between the H and the A and the P and the P and the P and the Y, P and the Y. And you can see here that they overlap. So that's a good start. With any design, not just fonts, but with any design that you use, you want to make sure that you have a bit of an overlap so that the design can be joined together. And I'm going to do that here by just simply clicking and dragging over all of those different letters. And I'm going to right click and I'm going to choose Weld. And that now shows me I have one word. You can see that those individual overlapping areas that were there before are now gone. And I'm just going to fill this in so you can see a little bit better. That is now going to fill up as one word. So that is something that you'll probably use a lot of, is to make your own words in the Silhouette software. So I am just going to zoom out a few times here and turn off my grid because I don't really need that right now. And I'm going to show you next on how you can resize this design. So you can do it in 2 different ways. Along the left and bottom side of the design, you can see the width and height of the shape. So if you want to resize it on your own, you use the outer 4 handles here, and it will proportionately resize that word just by clicking and dragging as small or as large as you want it to be. So you can do that just paying attention to the different measurements there on the side and on the bottom. If you were to select the other four handles, which are the innermost and these inner four squares, it's not going to proportionally keep that word the way it looks right now. So if I select this top or bottom one, for example, it's going to make it squishier. So I don't want to do that. And if I select the outside one here, it's going to make it tall and skinny. So sometimes you'll want to do that with a font to kind of change the look. But for me, I just want to leave it the way it looks and resize it. So there's, other than these handles here on the side, you can also use the alignment window, the scaling window in order to do that. So I'm going to click on the scaling icon, which looks like three small little boxes stacked atop each other. And you can see here that there's a width and height icon that you can choose. So I'm going to make this 5 inches wide, and I want to keep it proportionally the same. So in order to do that, I want to make sure that that lock aspect checkbox is clicked off, because it's going to keep my height proportionally the same to that width. So once I do that, I just simply hit apply, and you can see that my word now grows to 5 inches wide, and the height will adjust to keep the proportions the same. So I'm just going to zoom out and you can see how that looks. Okay? So that's something that you will use quite often, is to resize things in the scale window if you know you have something that needs to be in a specific area. Now the next thing I want to show you is how you can go ahead and open up your files from the Silhouette Essentials 101 class. And so you need to locate them on your computer. When you download them from the class materials, you need to save them to your computer. And I have already done that, and I'm just going to open them up. I have them saved in folders, and I'm just going to open them up here. And what you have is a PNG or an SVG file, and I'm going to show you how you can use the PNG in order to create the cut file. So I've opened that PNG image in the basic software, and I'm just going to drag it a little bit larger, and because I can resize these images later on. And at this point, I think that's the right size that I want. And I'm going to go to the select the trace window. And here that has the icon with the yellow outline. And if you click and drag over all the shapes there for the cut class, you'll see everything turns yellow. Right now, that is where your design would cut if you left it as it is. But I'm going to move this option here called the high pass filter. I'm going to increase that. And what that does is that fills all of the shapes in with yellow, creating an outline for your design. So you want to make sure you do this until all the gray or blacked out areas are gone and all you're left with is the yellow images. And from there, you want to select the trace icon here, and that's going to trace both the inside and the outside of those designs. So it's going to cut in the inside and the outside of those hearts. I'm just going to drag this off my mat really quickly to show you that's what your design is ready to cut out like. So that's really fun. I'm just going to drag this over here because we're going to use that later. Now if you want to see where this design is going to cut, if you just simply select it and go to your cut style window, you can go to your cut style window and select cut edge. You'll see that it will turn a bright red where all the lines are going to cut. So that's how you get your cut lines onto your designs. And I'm just going to delete this for now because I'm going to show you how I created some of those designs. So these designs were created with just basic shapes and basic simple welding and offsets. So we're going to go through those different options right now. The first is using the polygon tool here that's on the left side of the screen. If you select that, you can actually draw almost every basic shape available. So if you click and drag, you'll see that it automatically defaults to drawing this pentagon type shape. And there's this small zipper in the middle of the shape. And if you just click and drag it back and forth, you'll see that it changes the number of sides on the design. So you can go all the way up to number 60 and all the way down to number 3. 60 would be a perfectly round circle, and number 3 is obviously a triangle. So I'm just going to pick a octagon shape here, just so you get the idea of what we're doing. And then we're going to create a design based on that octagon shape. Okay, so I'm just going to show you that really quickly that you can obviously resize this with those same sizing handles we did with the font earlier. So it's the same process. If you use the outer ones, it's going to proportionally keep that size the same. And again, it would squish it if you use the other ones. So I'm just going to drag that off my mat because now I want to show you how to make this square frame. Using your rectangle tool here, if you click and drag down on your page, you can see that I'm just going to draw a basic rectangle. And if you click on that arrow, which is your pointer tool, you can see that there's a different width and height associated with that. But I don't want that width and height for my shape. I actually want it to be a 2 1/4 inch square. So I'm going to click on the scale option and type in 2 1/4 by 2 1/4 in my width and height. But I need to unclick this time the lock aspect ratio. And what that will do is it will allow me to change the aspect of that initial design so that it can be turned into the square. And there I have a 2 1/4 by 2 1/4 inch square. Now to create the frame, I need to create another square of the similar proportion on the inside of this shape. So in the offset window, you can see that there's two different options. One is for an offset and one is for internal offset. An offset, if you select that, will create a design exactly like the one you have selected, but on the outside of the design that you've drawn. If you select internal offset, it will create a design exactly the same, but on the inside. And so that's what I want to do. And I'm going to create a distance between the two shapes of 1/4 inch, so I'll type that in and hit apply. And now you're going to see that I have two identical squares, one 1/4 inch inside the other. So I have one 2 inch square and I have one 2 1/4 inch square. And I'll just drag this one off the side so you can see it a little bit better. So there's the two different squares that I've created using the offset. And it's a good option to use because it's identically proportionate and you're not going to have to worry about fooling around with setting settings. So if I want to make this into one shape, just like this frame here, I'm just going to click and drag over top of both shapes. And you can see I have two circles here highlighted at the top, and that's going to make it sure that I have both shapes selected. And if I go to my modify window and I select make compound path, that's now going to make it into one design. And we're going to go more into the make compound path in week 4 of the lesson, so I'm not going to get into that right now, but you can see if I fill that up with a color that it now has created into one frame design. So that's how that design was created. So I'm going to just drag this off to the side because we'll use that in a minute to create some of the other frames that like the hearts there that we've done. So I'm going to take the frame that we just designed and I'm going to take that octagon and treat it just like I did with the heart here in the free cut file. So I'm going to resize it, and the same process would be used to create any of these 3 frames here. And I'm just going to drag my octagon over top of this frame. And you want to make sure, just like we did with the font earlier, that you have an overlap. So I'm going to use my pointer tool and I'm just going to drag this over a little bit just to make sure I have that overlap on the left-hand side here. And then I have 3 empty areas on my frame. And if I click and drag over top of both shapes again and right-click and select Weld, you'll see that I've now created a frame with an octagon inside, similar to this heart shape here or the one down on the bottom corner with the 3 multiple hearts. And if I fill it in, you'll be able to see that a little bit better. So that's how you would do that. Very, very simple to make your own. You could take a word and do that inside the frame. You could do a shape. You could do a whole lot of things. To me, that's something that's kind of exciting. So using the exact same shapes, I'm going to create this similar to this heart shape design. And all you need to do in this case is just make the octagon slightly larger. And now what you want to do is, instead of having it overlapping the frame area in one section, you actually want to have it overlapping the frame in 2 or 3 different sections. So sometimes it's easier to separate the two. So I'm just going to click on the frame and drag it out of the way and make this octagon a little bit larger, just so you can see it a little bit better. And then I'm going to line them up together. And I'll zoom in so it's easier to see. And you really just want to make this octagon. And if you double click on it, you can click it and drag and make it a little bit larger, just to make sure that you have those overlaps just like we talked about with the fonts. And again, if you click and drag, you can also go to the modify window and select Weld. So you can either right click or you can go to the modify window to create that welded shape. And you can see that, this is an octagon, but it's the same idea as that heart one there. That's how we created that shape. So I am just going to get rid of that. And I'm going to show you how we created the other heart frames here. So again, I'm just going to draw a rectangle, and because I just used the fill tool, it automatically defaulted to fill in with black. So I'm just going to select the nothing and fill it in with nothing. And I'm going to resize this just like I did my other frame to 2 1/4 by 2 1/4. Again, removing the lock aspect in order to do that. And I'm going to, in this case, I'm not going to create an offset. I'm going to just draw another shape, and I'll do a pentagon this time. And again, for whatever reason, my fill color is on. Now, up at the top here, you can see I have a green sizing handle. And that actually isn't to resize. That's actually to rotate your shape. So if you click on that and hover over top, you'll see a little rotation symbol shows up. If you click and drag, you're able to turn that shape as much or as much as you want. You can tilt it all the way around if you want. So I'm just going to leave it like this, just so you get the idea. And what I want to do is create a cutout of that pentagon shape in my square, much like I did with the 2 heart shapes there in the bottom line of the cut file. So I'm just going to resize this a little bit smaller than the square, and I'm going to line it up together. And if I'm going to highlight both of them, this time I'm going to show you how you can align these so that that pentagon is in the center of the square. So if you click on the alignment tool, which is 3 rectangles stacked beside each other, you can click align center and align middle, and that will take the center of each of those 2 designs and line them up together. So depending on where the center of each design is, it will line them up. Now if I select both my designs and go to the modify window and I hit make compound path, you can see that it's now almost punched that inside design out, and I've created a design similar to that larger heart in the square. Now I'm just going to hit Control Z and just to reuse the shapes again, and this time I'm going to move that pentagon over slightly so it overlaps the left side of the square, and I'm going to go to the modify window and hit subtract, and you can see that just by doing that and filling it up, I've created a shape similar to these 2 different frames here that I've created for the hearts. Now let's see how you can use these principles in the Silhouette software on your page map sketch. So obviously for this sketch here, the heart frames were used in a quite literal manner to layer along one part of the page and just stack up in that square quilted type pattern. I cut them out of pattern paper and just layered them over top of each other, and then added some stitching to hold them in place. And you can even do things like pop them up with dimensional adhesive or cut them up on their own and use them a frame around a picture. There's a lot of different ways that you can use simple cut files to enhance your page map sketch. Now there's another sketch for this week's lesson, and that is this sketch right here. And you can see that's a pretty simple sketch with a layered section with some photos and a title. And we use the exact same principles to create the cut files for this week also. So to create the title, we use the welding option, and we also downloaded the font. And then to create this little background was all done using the offset and the subtract option from the modify window. And you can see that those hearts there were created by drawing them out as well as offsetting them and then welding them together in a border strip. So hopefully you can see that using basic design in your Silhouette software, you can create some fun and interesting shapes that will enhance your page map sketch. We hope you've enjoyed Silhouette Essentials Week 1, and we'll see you again soon for lesson number 2.